Well, welcome to another episode of the SNG Experience. I want to start off by thanking so many of you for appreciating the Spock story I did. And I didn't really, it was tagged to Spock Stories, which is related to The Love of Spock, which is the documentary that Adam Nimoy is going to make, and he's got a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter, where he asked us to all give our Spock stories, and that's why we did it. But I got some really kind and nice comments on it, and you guys spread it far and wide, and I really appreciate it. Most importantly, go to Kickstarter and support that project. There's only a few days left. He's about a third of the way, and this is kind of shocking for something that's Star Trek. Yes, I know it's not another Star Trek remake or spin-off. Those are great, but this is really important. This is documenting the history of Leonard Nimoy and his role as Mr. Spock. Anybody that knew him or worked with him knows what a wonderful man he was, and his son is really a very nice person. You need to support this project. So please go to Kickstarter for the love of Spock and donate anything. It'll go a long way. This week, we're going to be doing a lot of movie work. Now, before some of you decide to disappear again because you're not making models and you're not making monsters, remember that when we're making movies, we're making monsters and models and props and effects for these movies. So nothing really changes, except the fact that we're actually taking the things we do here and putting them in the film. Now, Martians Attacks has to be finished. I'm working on it now. And it's going to be done in a couple of weeks. And once it's done, I have been secretly working on another project all along that you will learn more about in the weeks coming, that we're immediately going into. And there's going to be a crowdfunding campaign for it, and you're going to know all about it. And there's going to be some really cool surprises in it, and it's going to be a much bigger endeavor than the movie we're doing now, which means that we'll be doing a lot of shows covering the work on that film, which you're going to want to watch because there's going to be big models in it. There's going to be all kinds of props and effects and things done in this that we're going to do here as well as making the film. So hang in there with us. We'd really appreciate it. This week, we're going to be working mostly on the Skyray as far as a model project and finishing that up for the family of Jerry Rollins. So you're going to see a lot of that and how that's being done, and a little bit on the movie. So let's get going.
Well, here it is, Tuesday. We're starting off the week for our show on a Tuesday because Monday was spent working on the movie. We have to finish Martians Attacks by July 3rd. There's a huge push on to finish it because we're starting our next film project. I've talked about it before. It's a space film. It will be episodic. In other words, there will be episodes like a TV show. I think you guys are going to like it. The script is 90% completed. I'm going to be completing it over the next few days. And we're going to be launching a new campaign. There's some really neat people involved, like Andy Probert, who's doing the spacecraft design for me right now. And the ship is beautiful. As soon as the script's done, copyrighted, we'll be sharing all this information with you and showing you the progress on this film. But first, we have to finish Martians Attacks SNG. So there's a big push on for that. So we're going to be doing modeling in between the lines as much as possible. The main thing we got to do right now is finish off this model here, Jerry Rollins Skyray. So I was not able to very well match the paint. As it turns out, thank you, Terry Swindle, for telling me about this, because this is the Gloss Gull Gray FS 164440, and you can see that it is very, very close minus the yellowing. Now, it's my hope once I remove most of the yellowing from this, these will match pretty well. If not, as he pointed out, I may spray just like a clear coat of transparent yellow over this. But it may be that I have to do a new Canopy because this paint is not a Tamiya paint. It is an acrylic, and I am told by Vern at Ventura Hobbies that I'm going to have a problem if I try to spray this over the Tamiya. Now, the thing about the Tamiya paint is that this is really, really dry. It is an acrylic, and I have nothing to lose trying this. I kept the masks so that I could remask this should anything happen. And you can see then the paint's kind of close, and look how close it is to that. So I don't know how much we're going to gain here, because this paint's so old, it's really difficult to match. But we're going to try lightly dusting this on and then hitting with some yellow to see what happens. I have a feeling we're going to be okay because the acrylic's pretty dry. It's been drying for days. You can see here where I cleaned it that we are closer, but it's not light enough. I'm hoping this is. We're going to see what happens here in a second, because we're going to use the airbrush and gun this stuff on. So here we have the exact same color originally used on the model, and it is pretty darn close where the model is particularly clean. Not exact, so what I need to do is put it on here. We're not going to get it any closer, not easily, and then I'm going to do a little airbrushing on it and stuff. I think what really helped this model, because I've cleaned it as best I can without repainting the whole thing, which we don't want to do because we have, it would be really difficult. I mean, a complete scrub down of the entire model. So what we're going to do is, I think, do a little weathering on it. I'm going to check with Terry right now to see if that's something he thinks can be done, because it'll really help blend this model out and make it look like it hasn't been a restored paint job. It'll look more like a weathered and flown plane. So let me go find out if Terry thinks that will be something that can be done. So I washed this plane and washed it with soap and water, and I got a lot of the yellow off, but you just couldn't get it all off. And outside of taking something very astringent to this, which could ruin it, I did as best I could getting all the dirt off. And but we still have some splotchy areas. This area here really bothers me. This needs to be fixed. But I think our clear coat I just put on, I put a test clear coat on here just to see what would happen, because literally after I washed it, the clear started coming right off it, and that was just with soap and water, and it looked all different colors. Now it's looking pretty even again. I mean, it's impossible to get perfect without completely repainting this model. So hopefully Terry's going to answer me back about doing the, that's a little blister in there, the weathering on it, because if I do a little bit of streaking here and there and a little bit of that kind of stuff, it's going to break it up and make it look like a well weathered and flown aircraft, especially off a carrier deck. So hopefully that will be approved. But it looks a lot better. So this is looking very hopeful. Luckily, we had no problems of reaction to the clear on whatever paint he used, because actually he did use a Model Master, whoever did this, but it's looking quite good. Over here we've cleaned all these parts. And what I'm doing over here is past the nacelles and to the left. To get this to match up, you see this yucky kind of color I've made here? This is a combination of brown, gray, yellow, all this lovely gunky stuff that's in our atmosphere that gets on these models over years and years and years, and somewhat matches the wear and the yellowing, the aging that's been on this model. You can see it here where I've cleaned all this stuff, and I mean, I've scrubbed this and that. I just can't get it any cleaner. So, but this yellow, this really does match. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to gun it onto here. And this should, I'm going to do very bit by bit by bit until we get somewhat of a match. Just a little bit, just to simulate the ears. And then we'll check it. That should darken it down a bit, and it also should get it yellow. All right, as you can see, this is actually starting to match, and it just took a lot of going back and forth and back and forth. Now, to really get it to match, what really does it is putting the clear back over it. Now this is flat, so when we put a gloss clear over this, it's going to deepen it, and that's a lot of what's going on here, because this was totally flat where the clear came off, and now that it's on, it's cleaner, but it's also, it matches this side better. I also got the go-ahead from Terry to weather this or do whatever I need to do to make this model look good as if it were my own model. That could be dangerous. Just kidding. Oh, and just to show you, I mean, really, that was a good match, and that's when I hit pay dirt. I knew I was getting there. It took 2 days so far, or not 2 complete days, but 2 days to really match it. Now here's the original Canopy. There's some red here, which I think was the where the explosive bolts are, or the rescue markers. I'm not sure, but I'll be able to figure that out. I noticed there's some details in here. I'm going to have to get back in there, a little vent there, but you can see even this Canopy doesn't match the paint job anymore since I cleaned it, and you can see how yellowed it is. So we're gonna go ahead and put some clear on this and see what happens. Okay, so we're getting really good. The paint is definitely really starting to match now. I mean, it's as close as we're going to get, but boy, what a huge improvement. And as it turns out, using the testers that was recommended, although it was the right paint, it did not match because of the aging. So I had to go back and back and back and back over and over again. And you know, it's like lighter here, darker here, darker here. The whole model's that way, so it's going to be fine. Got all the got the ordnance back on, got the drop tanks back on. It's pretty much there. Got it back on the base with a real strong pin in it. Basically, they used a 3-penny nail. That's what actually fit in there, and I bent it and glued it in so it's nice and strong and sitting on the base. Now tomorrow what we're going to do is fix all these areas here which have squadron putty on them. There's some underneath too where there's been some bad cracking down in here too. And then we're going to take that paint that I did as a match and we're going to put it on, and we're going to start touching up the paint and getting this model finished. So we went from this to this. So while the model sits and dries so we can finish out the paint job and stuff, the Cochrane is done and all boxed up and ready to ship. Yes, we have the Enterprise to work on. That big one back there. Well, not that one, but one just like it. We've got lots to do on that, and Elliot Brown did send us some more goodies. Let's go look what they are. And here we are, and you can see he's made, again, 2 different sizes of shuttles. I think the problem with the shuttle is, Elliot, as you well know, is that the shuttle that is in Houston, the actual one that Lynn contacted me about that night so long ago before I told Doug Drexler and Alec Peter about it, and played in when I was but a small lad in Palos Verdes visiting my friend in the early 70s. It is, in fact, quite small. You can't stand up inside of it, but yet the sets you can. So there is this discrepancy, as usual, as such as the bridge facing forward and the turbo lift being over there, and all that kind of stuff, where you have to take your best guess. And really, the shuttle should be quite small to fit in the hangar deck, but when you get it down to that size, you can see how big the door is. It's not big enough for one of our little guys to stand inside. I think that one is, and in fact, if you make it big enough to fit one of our little N-scale figures, it really needs to be bigger than this, which makes it look huge in there. So that's what we're up against. But thank you, Elliot, so much for sending those. I'm probably going to build the smaller one and put it in there, and or maybe the larger one up close and put the other one further back, as you were kind of talking about. And here's the very thin brass, which is for making the nacelles. Thank you so much, Elliot, for bringing that to me and getting that to me. He also did some optically clear domes, and I mean, these are really clear. These are not big enough, but you know, the idea here was to show me how clear he could get them. And what I'm thinking of doing is sending the form, which is here. This is the actual size. Whoa, Elliot, down on the dirty floor. This is the actual size, and if I send that to you, well, then
I don't have this plugged in because I don't have a, well, let's see. Now we see how clear that is. And it's pretty darn clear. Evidently a lot clearer than mine. Yes. So, thank you, Elliot, for that. Of course, yes, there's our bridge. Isn't it wonderful? I can't wait to finish it. Put all the chairs in it and everything else. But we got to get back to the movie and put a few days into that. So we'll be working in between the lines on the Enterprise and Battlestar while I get back here to my editing bay and start working on the movie.
Well, back on Wednesday, back to the Skyray, and what we got going here is this.
I had to chip away and carve away a lot of the old canopies. It turned out the old canopy went down to here, in fact, all the way down to here, and there's bits of it still here, and I didn't know that, and so I would have done this differently had I known. So what I'm doing is I carved all that away and being very careful not to chip any more of the paint on this. What I found out is that the plane had actually been stored in an un-air-conditioned locker or something, storage area, and the heat was pretty severe, and that's why the canopy shrunk away like it did. It needs to be over there like so. It's hard to do with one hand, but you get the idea. It does go flat to the back there and fits rather well. In fact, it fits perfectly, almost too good now. Really tight on the sides here so we don't have any gaps. And what I'm going to do is epoxy this on because I don't want to take any chances with CA and hold it down with tape for a long time, wrap some tape around it or something else, maybe not sticky because things are a little sticky because of our humidity from the rain we just had. Boy, did we need that. But you see that actually fits really flush in there. So once this is all down, then I will tape off this, and put some Evercoat in there to fill some of the gaps, and then touch up the paint, and then remove it, and then just sort of airbrush everything smooth again as best I can. So there's going to be a little bit of that there too. But the canopy fits down much closer. It's now, looked like it was sitting too high to me before. Now it's absolutely freaking perfect. So that's really good. That's the next step on mission accomplished. The rubber bands were much better to use than the tape because they pull really, really strong, and I could still adjust it and slide it around till it was sitting just right, which it is. So and it looks terrific, and I used epoxy, not anything else astringent, and so this will be nice and frosting from the kicker and stuff. Now what I've done is because I know this is down and it's not going anywhere because it's already kicked using 5-minute epoxy. I'm going to leave this on like this until tomorrow. I ain't going to touch it. So, but I figure while I'm in the kitchen here, I can go ahead and I can get both of those with the Evercoat metal glaze, which I'm going to mix up and put in there next. So that worked out really well, and we got a nice blend now of that canopy to the previous canopy where it was, and that's really good. It's hard to hold this plane now. It's got all the stuff on, all the bits underneath, the tanks and the ordnance and everything. I have to be very careful with it because it's meant to be on a stand, and I have to work with it like this. But you can see it, the tape, it protects it very well. Right up to the edge, and so now I can sand this really smooth and add some other maybe a little line there, and then we're going to paint it and match it, and it should match good. But I don't want to do that until I can play with this because I need to put the mask back on this to make sure I don't mess that up. But and we're going to just do very carefully with the airbrush, paint this and blend it off, because if I just use the mask you'll be able to see it. You need to blend it. So we've got pretty much everything patched up. There was a big chip there. I was just at the edge of this, so I'll be able to touch this up because I want to leave all the original markings as much as possible. We can turn it around this way. You can see this is now, that whole gap's filled in. We had a little gap there I had to get a chip in the paint with some Pro Epoxy or epoxy sculpt, and the same thing down here. There's some really bad chipping, so I put that into there. We're going to let this dry overnight. And also I went around everywhere I could get and got all the little gaps. Well, not gaps. This gap is how the model was, so that's okay. But this gap here was really ragged, really bad, and they were on a lot of them. So I fixed those too, which is makes these are really fragile. So you have to be really careful with this model. But I wish that this fit a little tighter. I don't dare mess with it. We were lucky to get this. So the Canopy really fits well now, and it's streamlined to the rest of the model the way it should be. So I'm going to walk away from this and go work on my movie until this dries tomorrow, and then we're going to sand all this down, and we're going to repaint this model and touch it up and do a little weathering and touch up some of the chips and stuff and call it done. So next day, rubber bands removed and everything. This is so strong and so tight on here. Unfortunately, the rubber bands made a little mark in the clear, which I'm going to have to lightly sand out and then re-clear. But luckily, I kept the masks for this, so I can just put them back and be careful. I'm going to need to put them back anyway because I got to put some little details in this that are apparent here, and like a line there and a little thingy there, and we'll get those in with a very fine pen. And unfortunately, yes, that really did, rubber bands really did mark that up a bit. But we'll very carefully just sand that down and a little bit clear back on it. But it really looks beautiful. The Canopy was sitting up too high before. It's just perfect now. And we're back at Martians Attack SNG. Unfortunately, a lot of our viewers don't find this so interesting, but you know, you better get used to it, because when this film is done, and it will be done in July, we're moving on to another project, which I am not going to tell you about for a while. But I will tell you about it as soon as everything's copyrighted and protected and all that kind of stuff. But there's some pretty exciting stuff going on. And yeah, a light just went on all by itself. Amazing. Must be those aliens. But we are working our way over here in the timeline, and it's getting pretty long and pretty complex, and we'll show you a little bit closer angle on all of that. So here you can see just how long things are getting. This is 23 minutes of timeline. I'm going to move down here to some of the stuff that, well, I've corrected and fixed a lot of things, like this shot, which was really unstable before, until because we didn't have markers up on the green screen. I figured out a way to track this thanks to Chris Cunningham, who pointed me in the direction of Mocha. Mocha was able to take some dark shadowy areas in the green screen, not wanted mind you, but there nevertheless. I used 2 key lights to get rid of them, but before I did that, I put Mocha on one of the shadows and made a very long narrow box, which it tracked quite well. It didn't work the first time I tried it. The second time I tried it worked well. You can see how beautiful that's tracked now. Also, the depth of field has been set so the background is somewhat soft focus, and a much better composite as well.
Maybe simple and effervescent Tom had spoken the truth as only an innocent could.
Oh, yeah. So we fixed a lot of that and went back over those effects. Of course, there's the driving shots we have that finally have been added in.
I really wonder if this is a good idea. Last time I was at Doug's house,
which turned out quite well. And then we'll show you a little bit of Uncle Ted. Who is now in the film.
That's incredible. Okay. Just sit down and let me show you what this is, because I really think you're going to find it quite fascinating.
Oh, I'm quite fascinated. What is this? Where'd you find this thing?
Well, remember those Mars Attacks cards years ago?
Oh, yeah, I remember those things. Those were cool.
Well, the other day I showed the cards to Mary, and this piece of paper fell out. And it had the plans to build this. Go ahead.
So you have plans?
Yeah, but I thought, this will never work. I could never get it to work. But Mary said, you should try to build a thing. But I didn't think I could get it to work. I mean, they never get it to work. And it does work.
Oh, my word.
That's a little bit of that for you. And here's a shot I still have to do. It's quite a long one, and it's a wide shot of the city and saucers and everything flying over, and that's one of the shots we still have to do. We still have. You'll notice that I'll turn the volume down a bit. This is a shot we have to do.
Downstairs.
You can see I've got some atmospheric haze in there now and some smoke drifting by, which is really looking kind of cool. There's another shot of the Martian. And I got a big surprise about that Martian when we finally get to it. This is when Carl and Tom Piedmont, Mom and Tom, appear on the roof.
Hey, where'd you guys come from? I don't know. What are you doing?
There's no score here, but the Tom Piedmont's been doing some great stuff for us. He's besides shooting most of this movie, he's also doing some effect shots, and one right here where I get zapped by the Martian, and you get to see me turn to a skeleton. And then he's done that, and one with Simon, and so he's going to be here tomorrow working on that. We'll cover some of that, but we're getting really close to finishing. And we're figuring in another couple of 2-3 weeks, we're going to be done with this movie. I'm going to cut a real sizzle reel trailer, and that will come up first, and then it'll take a while before we find out the venue we're going to run this movie on. It certainly will not be YouTube, Ain't going to happen. It's probably going to be on Vimeo or some other sites, so something a bit more reliable and where we won't get told we are using the music illegally, even though the composer is making it for us. Yeah, that's right, YouTube. You're SOL.
Well, thanks for being with us again this week. We'll, of course, do another show next week, and we're going to get back to this in between the lines. Even though I'm working on the movie, I'll be working on this. Of course, the one we're building for the Museum of Science Fiction in Washington, D.C., and we're going to do more work on the bridge, get that finished off. What I'm going to do is button up the bridge on it. Then I'm going to do the nacelles and do those, and that basically takes care of the bridge, the hangar bay, and the nacelles, which are all the busy parts, and then we can really get to finishing this model. So I want to remind everyone to go visit our website at steveneilsgarage.com, visit our store, visit our support page for supporting SNG, keeping this show going and all the work we do here. And also, again, be sure to check out For the Love of Spock on Kickstarter. We really want to see that happen. And I'm sure it'll happen no matter what. So, but you want to be part of that. It's really important in my humble opinion. So we will see you all next week. We love you a whole bunch. We really do. Because you are the ones that make all this possible. Have a great weekend.